Story 1. The Black-Eyed Children. They say that fear is strongest in the dark when your senses betray you and your mind begins to create shadows where there are none. But sometimes, the shadows are real. Sometimes, the things you think you see are exactly what's standing at your door. Tonight, we begin with one of America's most chilling modern legends. A story whispered across campfires, discussed in late-night forums, and feared by anyone who has ever opened their door to a stranger. This is the story of the Black-Eyed Children. It begins, as so many horrors do, on an ordinary night. Imagine this. You're home alone, the night is quiet, and outside the streets are empty. It's the kind of silence that feels almost too heavy, as if the world itself is holding its breath. And then, a knock. Not the frantic pounding of someone desperate, not the careless rapping of a neighbor, but slow, deliberate. A knock that tells you someone knows you're inside, someone who expects you to answer. You open the door, and standing there are two children, pale, expressionless, their clothes outdated or strangely mismatched. At first, you think they're lost. Their voices are calm but off somehow flat and emotionless. They ask for help, a ride home, to use your phone, to come inside. And then, you see their eyes. Not brown, not blue, not even white. Just black. The entire eye. Endless, hollow, hungry. Case 1. Brian Bethel's encounter, 1996. The first widely reported encounter happened in Abilene, Texas, 1996. A man named Brian Bethel, a respected journalist, was sitting in his car late one evening. He was parked outside an internet service provider's office, about to pay a bill, when he noticed two boys walking across the parking lot. They looked young, maybe 12, 13. They stopped by his driver's side window. One boy was pale-skinned with reddish hair, the other slightly older, darker hair. At first glance, they seemed like ordinary kids, but then they spoke. Their voices were oddly confident, mature in tone, but the words didn't make sense. "Hey mister, we need a ride. We want to see a movie, but we left our money at home. Can you drive us back to get it?" Brian felt an overwhelming dread. It came out of nowhere. His instincts screamed at him to lock the doors and leave, but politeness held him still. That's when he noticed their eyes. Black. Not just the pupils, not just dark-colored irises, but the entire sclera. Pure, solid black. And the boys' demeanor shifted. Their calmness became insistence. Their voices sharpened. "We can't get in your car unless you say it's okay. We need your help. Just let us in." Brian, trembling, muttered excuses and jammed the car into gear. As he pulled away, the boy's expressions changed to something far less childlike. He sped off, his heart pounding, his mind trying to deny what he had just seen. When he looked back in the rearview mirror, the parking lot was empty. The boys were gone. Since that night, reports of these children have spread across America and even into Europe. Always the same details. Pale skin, sometimes sickly. Clothes that don't quite fit the time. Hoodies in the heat, coats in the summer, strange fabrics. Speech that feels rehearsed, off, wrong. And always the eyes. Pitch black, bottomless. But the strangest thing, witnesses describe a psychological effect. These children don't just scare you, they project fear. A dread so intense it overrides logic, like prey in the presence of a predator. And yet, the children never enter a home, a car, or a building, unless they are invited. Case 2. The Vermont Woman, 2015. In 2015, a woman in Vermont was alone in her cabin during a snowstorm. The night was silent, her husband away on a business trip. At around 11 p.m., she heard a knock at the door. She opened it and found two children, a boy and a girl. They were dressed strangely, as if out of time. Old-fashioned coats, though their faces were pale and gaunt. They stared at her with lowered heads. Their voices were polite but odd, asking, "Can we come in? Our parents will be here soon." The woman felt immediate unease, but against her better judgment, she let them inside. The storm outside was brutal. As soon as they crossed the threshold, she realized her mistake. Her cats hissed, arching their backs. The house seemed colder. She offered them drinks, but they declined. Then she saw their eyes. Black, entirely black. Her nose began to bleed. She felt dizzy, nauseated. The children kept repeating, "Our parents will be here soon." Minutes later, two tall, pale figures appeared at the end of her driveway. The children suddenly stood, walked to the door, and left, without a word. The car they entered was a black sedan with tinted windows. It pulled away, disappearing into the snow. The woman's health declined after that night. Chronic nosebleeds, vision problems, weakness. Doctors could find no cause. She believed the black-eyed children had poisoned her somehow, simply by being in her home. Who are they? Some say they are extraterrestrials. Their black eyes are not eyes at all, but a facade, a genetic disguise failing to mimic humanity. Others believe they are demons, requiring invitation before they can enter, bound by rules older than mankind. And some whisper they are the spirits of lost children, cursed to wander until they find a home, feeding off the fear of those they encounter. There is no single origin, no single culture that claims them. They appear in the United States, the United Kingdom, Europe, everywhere, always the same. Case 3, The Night Traveller, England, 2012. A man in Staffordshire, England, was walking home late at night. The road was empty, his breath misting in the cold air. He heard footsteps behind him, quick, light, like children running. He turned, but the street was empty. Minutes later, the sound returned. This time, he turned and saw two children, maybe 10 years old, standing under a street lamp. Their clothes were drab, greyish, their skin pale. He froze, their heads tilted unnaturally, both in perfect unison. And then he saw their eyes, black, hollow, reflecting the lamplight like pools of ink. The children spoke together, their voices perfectly synchronized. "Can we walk with you? It's dark. We'll get lost without you." The man bolted. He sprinted down the street, heart pounding, until he reached his flat. When he dared to look behind, the street was empty, silent. But he swore. As he closed his door, he heard soft knocking. 3 times. The black-eyed children are not just a ghost story. They are an invitation to paranoia. The thought that at any moment someone might knock at your door, and when you open it, you'll see them, standing there, waiting, asking to be let in, and you'll feel it, that primal choking fear that says, if I let them in, I won't come out alive. So, if you're ever alone, and you hear that knock, remember, it might not be a neighbor, it might not be a stranger, it might not even be human, it might be the black-eyed children, and they will ask you ever so politely, can we come in? The real question is, what will you answer? Story 2. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Some legends are whispered in small towns. Some pass quietly from driver to driver. But there's one story that exists almost everywhere, across America, across Europe, and even beyond. It's the story of a lonely road, a stranger in need, and a passenger who never makes it home. This is the legend of the Vanishing Hitchhiker. It usually begins the same way. A driver is traveling late at night. The highway is dark, the air heavy with silence. The headlights carve tunnels of light through the endless black. Then, they see someone. A figure on the side of the road. Sometimes a young woman, pale, dressed in white. Sometimes a soldier, thumb out, looking for a ride. The driver slows down, pulls over, and offers a seat. The hitchhiker climbs in. They exchange a few words, sometimes laughter, sometimes silence. The driver asks where they're going. The hitchhiker gives an address, or simply says home. And then, without warning, the driver looks back, and the passenger is gone. The seat is empty, the door unopened, no sound, no sign, just gone. Case 1. The Resurrection Cemetery, Illinois, USA. In the 1930s, a story began spreading in Chicago. A young man named Jerry Pallas was dancing at a ballroom when he met a beautiful blonde girl in a white dress. They laughed, danced, and when the night ended, he offered to drive her home. She gave him an address, but halfway down the road she asked him to stop in front of a large gate. Confused, Jerry slowed down. She turned to him, smiled sadly and said, "This is where I live." Then she vanished. The gate she pointed to was the entrance of Resurrection Cemetery. Locals still tell the tale of Resurrection Mary, the most famous vanishing hitchhiker in American history. Sightings of her continue to this day, a pale young woman in white, thumbing for rides only to disappear before the car leaves the road. Case 2. The Spanish Bride, Madrid Highway. In Spain, the legend takes a darker turn. Drivers traveling along a lonely highway outside Madrid began reporting the same thing. A young bride dressed in her wedding gown, standing by the roadside, crying. One driver picked her up. She told him her story, that she had been killed on her wedding night in a car crash, right there on that very road. She asked him to please drive carefully, to slow down around the next bend. The man listened, steering carefully through the curve. When he looked back to thank her, the seat was empty. When he later told locals, they nodded. They had heard the same tale before. That road had taken a young bride's life decades earlier, and now she warns travelers to drive safe, even from beyond the grave. Why it terrifies us. The vanishing hitchhiker is terrifying because it feels so real. Anyone who drives at night has seen strangers by the roadside. Anyone could stop to help, and anyone could end up giving a ride to someone who was never really there. The story touches something deep in us. Guilt, fear, compassion, curiosity. You never know who you're letting into your car, or if they even belong to this world. Case 3. The Soldier of Union, South Carolina. In the 1950s, near Union, South Carolina, multiple reports surfaced of a soldier in uniform hitchhiking along the highway. Drivers described him as young, clean-shaven, polite. He always gave the same address, a farmhouse just a few miles down the road. One driver even walked to the door with him, but when the family answered, the soldier was gone. The family grew pale. They explained that their son had been killed overseas years before. Every so often, they said, he still comes home. Case 4. The Norwegian Ghost Bride. Europe has its share of these stories too. In Norway, truck drivers tell of a woman in white who appears on stormy nights, soaked, shivering, asking for a ride. She climbs in, whispers an address, but never makes it there. The strangest detail? Drivers report that the seat where she sat is always wet, as though rainwater dripped from her gown. Case 5. The Texas Highway Woman, 1979. In 1979, a man named Harold was driving late on a Texas back road when he saw a woman waving frantically. He pulled over, and she rushed into the car, sobbing, begging him to hurry. She claimed her boyfriend had left her on the roadside after a fight. Harold comforted her, drove for several miles, and asked where to take her. She pointed to a farmhouse and whispered, "Please don't tell him you saw me." He promised, but when he looked back, her seat was empty. Later, when Harold stopped at the farmhouse to check, an old man answered. He listened quietly and then sighed. "You're not the first," he said. "My daughter died on that road 15 years ago." Theories behind the hitchhiker. Why does this story repeat across cultures, across decades? Folklorists suggest echoes of trauma. Many vanishing hitchhiker tales are tied to tragic accidents, often involving young lives lost too soon. Moral lessons. Some ghosts warn drivers to slow down, to drive safe. Others remind us of the danger of picking up strangers. Shared fears. Driving alone at night is universal. The loneliness, the darkness, the unknown. It gives birth to legends. Case 6. The Hitchhiker Who Knows Your Name. One of the strangest reports comes from Arizona. A trucker picked up a girl in white. She was quiet most of the ride, until suddenly she turned to him and whispered his full name. Not just his first name, but his middle name too. Something only his late mother ever called him. Terrified, he demanded how she knew. She only smiled. And then she was gone. The ending nobody sees coming. What's most unsettling is not just that the hitchhiker disappears, it's that the driver is left with proof. Sometimes it's a scarf on the seat. Sometimes it's a damp mark. Sometimes even fingerprints on the window. A reminder that maybe, just maybe, for a few miles, you shared your car with the dead. So, the next time you're driving down a lonely highway and you see someone standing by the roadside, would you stop? Would you open your door? Or would you keep driving, knowing that if you let them in, you might not be alone? Because the vanishing hitchhiker could be waiting, anywhere, anytime. And once they're gone, you'll never forget the ride.